What's up, everybody? You get episode 12 started right away. Just going to wait on Joey here for a few seconds and we'll get right to it.
Hi,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks. Welcome, everybody, to RoseNthorn Talk, episode 12. My name is Aaron Marshall Clark, and my special guest today is photographer Joey Senft. And we're going to delve into the world of photography and everything about it. So I'm going to start right away with the first question. What inspired you to become a photographer?
Oh, I get that question a lot. Um, I went to a high school that had a lot of bands that used to play, and all my friends used to play in the bands, and I was just kind of capturing my friends in their environment, and then I kind of stuck with it.
Awesome. So that we're talking like high school, grade 10-ish, so to speak.
Would have been, yeah, about grade 10, yeah. So a
Okay.
long time ago.
That's an awesome, speaking of photography, that's an awesome picture in the background.
Oh, thanks. That's Dwayne Larson did that photo of
Hmm.
Tony Sly from No Use for a Name.
Wow. Yeah, it looks fantastic. Now, how long have you been practicing photography?
I've been doing photography for almost 20 years.
20. Wow. Okay. So during school, obviously, resources, you took photos of the bands and such. Now, aside from, well, you tell me what, and on the audience, what classes were available and how were you able to manage the resources that say weren't in school and kind of just do it on your own freelance style and then combine it with.
There actually wasn't a lot of photography in my school back then, so I took photography after I went to university. I went to Red River and did their photography course there because there wasn't a lot of digital back then either. So I had to
Right.
start off with film.
And how was that? Like, was there a big difference or was it like a big, what am I trying to say here, learning curve
I
regarding
think
going?
it's I think it's
Yeah.
important to actually learn the film aspect of it more than the digital. Like you should start off with film more
Why
than
is that?
digital.
Tell us why, especially myself. I'm not aware as why. I didn't know that. Like you learn something new every day. So why is that so imperative that you do that first?
You understand aperture and shutter speed a lot better because you have to get the shot right the first time instead of just deleting it and starting and getting another one.
So in
You don't have as
essence,
many options.
time consuming if you don't have that in place. See, I didn't know that. Okay, great. Well, that's the whole point. You're supposed to guide us and teach us in all your knowledge and how this goes. That's great. Now, what style of photography did you start out with? And where do you see yourself? Where has it grown since then? I guess that's a very that broad question, but what did you start out with? And then where do you see yourself now with photography and what you've improved on?
Well, I always started out with the band photography. That
Yeah.
was the first thing to start out with, and then now it's kind of grown to more portrait photography a little bit. I still love doing concerts. That's my main thing to shoot, and now I work for a children's book company as well, so I do a lot of different photos of animals and stuff like that as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did tell me about that a few months ago. Yeah, let's elaborate on that now. You brought it up at a perfect time, actually. So tell us about that and what that experience is like, because it's obviously completely different than a concert environment, right? So,
Well, the book company, so I work with a family that does these books. They're called Blueberry Hill Books, and they
okay.
do children's books from kindergarten to grade two. And they're mostly about their dogs. So I'm really working with 5 dogs in the house all the time. So trying to get pictures of them in the positions that I need them to be in is not always the easiest, but it's a lot of fun to do that.
Do you feel that they know that animals know that you're trying to take a picture of them? Because every time I try to take a pictures with my friends' pets, it's like pulling teeth. So what's it like for you, or is it the same thing?
It's pretty much the same. There's one or two dogs that'll do anything for a treat, but the other ones are a little camera shy, so they tend
Right.
to turn their head away. So it's a little bit more difficult,
I know
but
you have
we
a
get it
dog.
done.
I know you have a dog as well. And is it the same with your pet?
Penny's pretty good. It's Kyle's dog, but she doesn't mind getting her picture taken for the most part. She doesn't like looking at the camera. She'll turn her head, but it's fine. It looks pretty anyways.
So with tell us more about the children's books. Like you're doing the photography, just so that I yourself and the audience has a clear understanding, and more so for myself. Is it pictures of children that you're taking that are going to be like live photos in the book, or is it like taking pictures that are going to be drawn as like caricatures, cartoons? Does that make sense? Like, or am I off track?
We have some illustration books. We haven't done one in a while. I do the photos right now of the dogs, and then I do the layout for the book. So there's not a lot of kids in the pictures just because um, you have to get a lot of things signed so that the kids are allowed to be in the books as well. So with the dogs, it's a lot easier, and the owners are part of the book company anyway. So I do all the layout for the book and that kind of thing. And they're small books, and they're just guided reading to teach the kids how to learn. And everybody likes dogs, so
Right. So from like, would we say kindergarten to like grade 5, and where can we find these books for purchase?
kindergarten to grade 2.
Okay.
They're all guided reading books. Blueberryhillbooks.com is the website for it. We mostly sell to schools. We don't do a lot of individual sales, but right now we're up for anything, I think,
Yeah,
just because
absolutely.
we're having it hard, not the schools not being around right now. So
So we can get it on the website then as well, blueberryhillbooks.com.
yeah, we've got 145 English books, about 100 French books, and I think it's like 20 or 30 Spanish books.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Reminds me of my Scholastic days marching into the book fairs and buying books all the time. It's great.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, I'm glad that obviously that's still a resource, but I wasn't sure if it was. I'm glad it is, though. That's fantastic. So, what are the biggest challenges being behind the camera as opposed to being in front of the camera? I love being in front of the camera. If anyone doesn't know that about me already, I love
Yeah, lots
so
of portraits of you.
thank you. And what's the difference between being behind it, you find, and being in front of it?
I'm not a big fan of being in front of it. I like being behind it because I see things differently than other people sometimes. So my eye is always trying to get that next shot, even if I don't have the camera in my hand. Like if I'm at a concert and I'm not allowed to take pictures, it drives me a little crazy because I'm like, oh, that would have been a really good shot, and I missed it.
Right? No, that makes sense too. So it comes down to a lot of angles then, so to speak, when you're behind the camera that you're seeing that we're not seeing, just kind of like positioning, things of that nature, because it's
Angles and lighting is a big one for sure, especially at concerts, because some lighting can just be absolutely beautiful and get that really nice shot, and if you don't have your camera, it's a little disappointing.
right. Yeah, exactly. And we'll elaborate on having a camera with you. That's one of my questions coming up. But I just wanted to make mention of my good friends and neighbors, Trevor James McCloy from TJX Photography. He always tells me to commend you on your work. He loves your work. I love your work as
Oh,
well.
thanks.
Yeah. We did a photo shoot exactly a week ago today in what was called the Blue Hour. We had tried it a weeks before, about a week before, week and a couple of days before. Point being, so we did it last week and it was very successful and very different. Have you tried the Blue Hour photography, and what are your thoughts on it? Or any advice on it?
I haven't really done the blue hour. I'm more into the golden hour. I prefer it to be a little warmer
Yeah.
for portraits and stuff like that. It just, to me, I prefer that color tone a little bit more. My neighbor actually likes the blue hour. She likes the darker tones, and I'm not used to that.
So with that being said, that just dawned on me a question about the lack thereof of there's light, but the lack thereof of color in winter. How are the winter shoots like, or is that as is there as much continuum in a winter shoot as there is in a summer, if that makes sense? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Winter's not so bad because it
Yeah.
is like Winnipeg's pretty good for it because the snow actually reflects a lot, so it can actually be really pretty. And when it snows, if it's really fluffy snow, that can actually be a lot more beautiful than some of the summer shots too.
So with back to the person in front of the camera is what I'm trying to say is what's a nuisance to them? Does that make sense? What's a nuisance to someone who's like, wait, is it a patience thing? Dependent on what it is. Like it could be a wedding, it could be graduation. We'll elaborate on that in a moment. But what do you find people the most on nerves about when they're getting pictures?
The other people or me?
Both. Now. Both. Yes.
um,
People and then you. Perfect.
People and me. Well, with weddings, people just want to get the photos kind of over with. Like they think it's gonna turn out really well, and they don't
Yeah.
understand that you kind of have to wait for the right light. And when you're shooting weddings, sometimes they're like midday, which is the worst light any photographer will want to deal with.
Why is that?
So because it's so bright, the light is so harsh, and trying to correct for that is just like there's weird shadows if you're by trees or anything, and then there's a really harsh light, and trying to edit for that is just almost impossible.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that. That's what I'm trying to say. That makes a lot of sense though, especially if it's during the day or in the summer and such. So tell us about the first ever photo shoot you did and what made it memorable.
Oh, that's a tough one. The first photo shoot was a really long time ago. It would have been just in school. Like they made us do some studio work in school, so I brought two of my friends in to do some work, um, and it was just memorable because they were my friends, and it was a lot of fun to do it.
Okay, that's perfect. And who is the challenge to stay focused? Yourself or the person that you're taking a picture of? When it's like a long, let me elaborate. Like, let's say it's a night of, like a festival. Like, let's say it's like a folk fest, or let's say it's a wedding. What's the biggest challenge? What keeps you focused, pun intended, through a very long set of hours or days?
Festivals can be hard only because you've been out in the sun for so long and you're carrying all your gear, so you don't get a lot of time off. Like with folk fest, we are on like pretty much the entire festival, so you're exhausted. But for me, because I like shooting so much, it's really whatever I see that I think looks like a nice shot, I'll shoot it for sure. I don't find it, I wouldn't say it's frustrating, but it's exhausting. That's all.
That's a great way to describe it. Now, speaking of which, how on the other side of the coin do you stay focused during COVID when we don't unfortunately have Folk Fest this year? We don't have festivals. We do have physical distancing events that we can attend, perform at. I have these past couple weeks performed, and you've been there. I'm gonna post a picture that you took of one of the groups I'm in, Keister Largo and the Squid Squad at the new cavern, or I should say the new Toad a couple weeks ago, which is amazing photo you took. I'm going to post
Thanks.
that. You're welcome after the broadcast here. But now during COVID, what's kept you focused, so to speak, because there's not that outlet for taking photos.
Well, I don't do much at night anymore because there aren't any concerts, but I have kind of made my own projects. Like I'm doing this project with musicians and kids. So I'm going
Cool.
around to some of my friends' houses and taking pictures of them and their kids, just kind of as a contribution to the musicians in Winnipeg, just to give them a little light, I guess. And then my neighbor is a stylist and owns a vintage clothing shop. So I've been
Ah.
doing a lot of portraits and stuff of her lately. So we have a shoot on Friday.
Oh, nice. Also, for let's say merchandise as well, like for catalogs, online catalogs, you take photos of that as well. Is that something that you just crossed your mind to do? Or is that part of what you've been doing?
It's not something I've been doing. Like with her, she's just doing it for her online website, so she's posting it for that. I haven't really done anything for catalogs. I wouldn't say no to it. I'm doing a shoot on Wednesday for Superlube. I do a couple commercial
Right.
projects for them, but that's about it.
Excellent. And just to touch base again with musicians and their kids, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a phenomenal idea. Was it an idea, or has it been done? Have you done this? Have you done that before, or is this new? New concept.
I started it a few years ago. It's hard when musicians are always on tour and busy doing gigs and everything like that. So this was kind of a perfect time to get the chance to do that kind of thing.
Would you say that's what you missed the most? Doing photography at live events?
Oh, absolutely. That's my main work is that, and not being able to do it is very sad.
Yeah. And in time it'll pass. You know, I don't know when, you don't either, but you're obviously finding ways to accommodate the skill set and the crafts, which is fantastic. So, what makes every photo shoot different for you?
It's just getting to know the person behind well, I guess in front of the camera. Um, I like to get to know their personality, and when I shoot them, it comes through a little bit more. It takes them a little bit to get more relaxed, but once they are, you can understand their personality a little bit more.
It definitely adds to how you're going to take the photographs, which
Yeah,
is
some people are
great.
shy, some people get a little bit more outgoing with it.
Right. Now, can you recall a time where everything, it's a two-part question, of course, where everything went wrong, and then a time where everything went right?
um I haven't had a lot of accidents with my gear or anything like that.
That's
um I've been lucky that way. I've had some friends while at shoots have their camera just die on them. I knock on wood because I don't want that to happen, but it does happen. I always have two cameras with me just in that case.
right.
Um, Everything that went right. I did a
Hmm.
shoot with my neighbor just last week, and we were talking about doing photos in the rain, and it just so happened that it rained right when we were finishing our other shoot. And she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna switch clothes." So she switched her clothes, and we ran out, and we got really pretty rainbow behind us.
Nice. Yeah, when it comes to photo shoots, I do more wardrobe changes than Diana Ross, let me tell you. And that's who I learned. So I like always prepared. So that's great though. That's one thing I have not done yet. I'm going to suggest it to whenever we do a photo shoot, whenever I do one with my friend Trevor is in the rain. Now, just to touch base on that, how is that different? Because little do I know about what it's like behind it, of course, the camera. Is it impacting it? Because, well, there's rain falling, right? Like, how does that go through the processing stages and come out clear as if it was a clear blue sky?
I've done a couple rain shots before. It's not easy because your lens is getting soaked. That's
Right.
more than anything. The camera, I'm not too worried about because it is waterproof, so I just dry it off afterwards. But getting the rain droplets on the lens can be kind of annoying because then your lens can't focus. But so far, it's turned out pretty well for the most part.
Excellent. I'll keep that in mind. Now, you've done a lot of work with the Village Idiots. Shout out to Kevin Repay and Riley Saunders. How did that come to fruition? How did you start working with the boys there?
They'll tell you every time. So it started off with Riley, I guess, saw me at, I think was it Airborne? It was a band called The Wild, who I'm friends with at the Burt, and Riley and Ripe were there, and they saw me there, and they were like, "Man, she's at like every concert. Like, we gotta do something with this girl." And
Yeah.
they had this idea about doing the Village Idiots, and they messaged me and asked if I wanted to do photos for? And I said, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And it was at the Roslyn, and I just happened to be living on Roslyn at the time as well, so it was across the street from me, so I couldn't say no.
Right, absolutely. Now, they are a fantastic organization, friends of mine as well. What's it like working with them from the inception to the present day and moving forward? What have you learned from them? And when I have them on the broadcast, I'll ask them the same question about you. But what have you learned from them working with them and how they uphold their structure with Live at the Roslyn, with everything that the village needs to do?
Um, it's definitely progressed over the last 4 years. They've definitely, like, Repays learns anything that he can possibly can to be better at what he's doing with the switching and everything like that, and learning how to use the cameras and everything. So that's really impressive that he's willing to do that. And then we've got Mike Osakoya and Kevin Moretz as well working with us, and Atom, and we've had a couple different sound guys working with us as well. So it's progressed quite a bit, and doing all the video with them is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Riley's always a good host and keeps us on time. So that's the best thing, is that he's always keeping us on time.
Punctuality, I knew that was going to come up in some way, shape, or form, either with myself or you, especially being a photographer, and how key and important that is. So it's amazing. And of course, continued success. So weddings and graduations, huge milestones in all of our lives, both segments. Now, how does photography differ for a wedding and a graduation, and how are they the same?
I don't think I've ever shot a graduation before. I've shot a few weddings. I don't really advertise that I do that, because it's not something, like, yes, it's good money, but the longer you do it, the more you're not gonna like doing it. So I have done a few this year. I have another one coming up in August. I only do them for friends, but it's a lot more posing, whereas concerts, it's live and it's on the spot, with posing everybody and making sure everybody's eyes are open. It's a little more difficult, but still fun.
What makes your Yeah, still fun, absolutely. What makes your work stand out in a field of a craft, a field of study that, I don't want to say there's an influx, but there's an influx of photographers and media-related careers out there? What makes your work stand out?
I don't know. That's a question for everybody else, I guess. I like doing it. I do it for myself more than anything. I'm not doing it for everybody else, but I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, everybody has their own likes and dislikes in photography. I'm sure some people like my photography and some people don't, but I like it, so that's what matters to me.
Oh, absolutely. Great. And I think that's a fantastic answer to how to approach that. Yeah, that's why I asked. So photo editing, back to that. Is it as enjoyable as taking the photos?
Sometimes it can be a little tedious, but if I've shot a really good concert or really good photo shoot, then I get excited about editing them. Otherwise, right, it's more work than I really want to deal with.
Nice. And camera equipment, as we both know, as we all know, I should say, the audience, shout outs to the audience that's watching as well. Always, I love you guys. We all know the camera equipment is super expensive. That's a bottom line. So how often do you have to update your equipment?
Well, I was kind of lucky. I used to work at a camera store. I was at a camera store for 15 years, so it helped with paying for the camera gear, but I haven't updated my camera in a couple years. I don't think it's super necessary to have to update your camera gear all that often. It's more the photographer taking the photo than the camera anyways. So it's always nice to have a good lens, but the camera isn't everything.
That's good to know that. And is there anything that prevents you from overspending? Even though obviously the materials, the equipment is very expensive, but is there ways to say, I don't need to buy that because of, and what helps you to make that decision when there's a possibility one day you go in and you see 4 or 5 different pieces of equipment you might want to buy.
Well, the cameras have gotten to the point where it's not like some of the cameras are 45 megapixels. I'm not doing billboard size photos, so it's not really something I need to spend.
Right.
Try and keep that in
Just
mind.
wait for you to.
I try and keep that in mind when buying gear. Like, you don't need all the bells and whistles to still create a great photo.
Excellent. No, and that's why I asked an expert, and for the audience to know that are planning on pursuing this as a career, that they don't need to. That's what the question absolutely was alluding to, is that they don't need to buy all the bells and whistles, just the best ones, so that it lasts them over a duration of time. Now, I saw on your social media that you had gone to Colombia, I believe it was, just under 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like, doing photography there as opposed to North America? Obviously, there's some very obvious distinctions, but I've never been there. And for the audience, for those in the audience who haven't, what's it like to take photos out there, and what's stood out to you out there?
Colombia is really beautiful. Like, the landscape is amazing. I'm not so much a landscape photographer, so it takes me a minute to actually see the photo that I'd like to take. Like, the portraits are easy to do, and the people are easy to take photos of, and like the colors are just beautiful. They had like umbrellas all along the streets and everything, which was really pretty. I've traveled quite a bit and done a lot of photos in other countries, and it's more the landscape and the people that are a little different, but really enjoy it.
That's amazing to hear, especially with you mentioning that landscape photography isn't your naivete, but you found a pocket, so to speak, for it, and it made it obviously very worthwhile. So that's fantastic. I'm glad I remembered to bring that question up because I'm fascinated on what it would be like there. Now, on another note, equality in the workplace, it's a must, it's imperative, it's long overdue in my eyes and in the eyes of many. Now, how do you feel equality in the workplace has evolved as yourself as a woman, a female in the photography business or any industry, and what do you still feel still needs to change?
Well, I don't. Uh, well, because I worked in retail for such a long time, you do feel like the men don't really believe that you know what you're talking about when you're trying to tell them about camera gear. So I have had men prefer to talk to other men about photography. Even women want to talk to the guys about photography more, which I find very weird. But my coworkers were very supportive and always tried to deter that. So there's not, I feel like women are getting more into photography than they used to be, so they're definitely coming up, which is great, but I do feel like there can be some more improvements.
Absolutely, I agree. What's the best advice for someone who is pursuing photography as a career that you have? The best advice you have, I should say.
Don't stop shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to keep shooting until you find your kind of niche. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not good enough for it. You just got to keep shooting and keep trying different things, and you'll find what you really are passionate about.
Well said. Now, we're going to wrap up with the 7. So 7 questions under a minute. I always say that, usually goes up. Now, here we go. Destination you have not been where you want to take photos.
Denmark.
And why?
There's a really big music festival out there, and I would really like to shoot that concert in Denmark.
Excellent. Camping, mountain climbing, or spelunking, which is exploration caves.
I would say mountain climbing. I probably wouldn't be very good at it, but I would rather do that than the other ones.
Describe your favorite picture of yourself, or photo, I should say, of yourself from childhood.
There's a really old picture of me when I was a baby sitting in a trough with a bunch of goats, or no, sheep all around me.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. Do you feel you could come up with 1,000 words or more for a photo if asked to do it? And I'm not asking you to do that today, but if someone was to ask you, would you think you could come up with 1,000 words for a photo or a picture?
I'm sure I could, but it would take me a really long time.
Your
I
vision
had to do
for,
an essay on a photo.
yeah, there you go. I can word it like that, sure. Your vision for Joey Senft photography, your vision for the future.
I don't know. I would love to be photographing some bands, like going on tour with bands. Who knows when that will ever happen, but that is my goal.
Okay, and last question, will you be on RoseNthorn Talk in the future?
Of course.
Now, shout outs. Shout outs to everyone. We talked about the Village Idiots, Kevin, Michael, Riley. Who else would you like to shout out? Your social media as well, please, so everyone knows where to find you.
My social media is Senft Photography. Shout out to my neighbor, Patrons of Dreams. Her shop is awesome. Who else we got? Alyssa Arnold, if you want to talk to another photographer, she's great too.
Thanks, Alyssa. Yeah.
Dwayne Larson.
Yeah.
Dwayne Larson Photography. He's also got It's a Music Thing, which is a collaboration with a bunch of photographers about concerts and everything like that as well.
Excellent. So getting to know you over the last year, and we obviously share the same circle of friends in the music industry. It's a beautiful thing. You have a sparkling personality, and I can't wait to do a photo shoot with you in the future.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I love all of you. Stay tuned for episode 13 coming up very soon this week. This episode will be playing on my Instagram posts, if that makes sense, like immediately, and it'll be on my YouTube channel later tonight. Joey, thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
You're welcome. Okay, everybody, have a great night. Bye.